kidding me? Smeesh, meesh, boosh. Right, let's rewind a bit. I had to flee a country, and I think it's finally time to share my story. Alright, so let's start this story of this amazing, beautiful, creative, gorgeous, young, red-headed girl in late February. Before I dive more into the video, make sure you comment, like, and subscribe for more content like this. Putting on my robe, it's pretty cold. So in late February, I was actually in Vienna, Austria, studying abroad. So at this point, coronavirus had already hit Italy and was slowly invading Europe. So in the beginning of March, there definitely was some changes that were happening in Austria. For example, all my classes went online, and there was only a maximum of 100 people allowed inside buildings and a maximum of 500 people allowed for outside gatherings.
It's coming.
Wednesday, March 11th, a bunch of my friends and I decided that we wanted to go out. So we went to this bar, but there's already 100 people max, so we weren't even allowed inside. That night, we knew that President Trump was going to be making an announcement, but it was going to be at 2 a.m. our time, and since my online German class was at 9, I was like, you know what, I just need sleep. I'll find out in the morning what he's saying.
Bam!
Suddenly, it's 2:30 in the morning and I am waking up from a deep sleep. So the lights are on, all of my roommates are up, and everyone's screaming. At this point, President Trump had just issued a travel ban from Europe to the US, excluding the UK. Unfortunately, there wasn't a ton of information within this launched travel ban. Some people thought it was just for non-US citizens, other people thought it was for everyone going back to the States. All of our parents and our friends were texting, calling us, saying basically, you need to pack right now and leave the country immediately. So at this point, we're all just packing whatever we can into our suitcases and just looking up flights. At this point, one of my roommates actually found a flight that was going to be at 6:40 in the morning with a layover in Heathrow and then was going to go back to O'Hare Airport. So we're all like, perfect, let's all hop on this flight, all 5 of us together. Then we realized that there was only 3 seats available and there was 5 of us. So 2 of my roommates actually got on that flight, and I was typing as fast as possible to get that 3rd seat. But unfortunately, none of my cards were working. My credit card and my debit card and my parents' cards were all declining. This meant someone got that 3rd seat and it wasn't me. I took a break and watched the episode of The Office where Michael says goodbye, and I just couldn't stop crying, so I just had to film the rest the next day. Alright, so at this point, my 3rd roommate decided that she was just going to go to the airport and try to find a flight there. So these 3 roommates all said their goodbyes and then left to the airport. At this point, then it was just me and my roommate Claire, and she was on the phone with Austrian Airlines trying to get a refund for our flight in May, and my parents were just yelling at me like, buy a flight. Then my dad finally finds 2 different flights I could take. Both of them would be leaving Vienna at 7:50, have a layover in Heathrow. They would just be landing in Chicago at different times. One option was at 2:25 in the afternoon, and the other was at 4:25 in the afternoon. My parents told me that I should just take the 2:25 option, so I booked that and then tried to pack everything I could into what I had left for space. I didn't want to deal with any overweight luggage and having to pay those costs, so I left a ton of stuff there. I couldn't actually find my AirPods or my sunglasses when I was trying to pack, but I actually left a bunch of dresses, a brand new shirt, some presents I was getting my family, so not ideal. I then called an Uber and then quickly headed over to the airport. I don't think my Uber driver really understood why I was so panicked. The whole time he was just asking me what the differences between Austria and America were.
I don't know the outlets.
So luckily at the airport, I connected with one of my friends who randomly had the same first flight as me from Vienna to Heathrow at 7:50 in the morning. He had a 3-hour layover in Heathrow, and I remember him asking me if I thought I was going to make my flight because mine was only an hour 20. I didn't think anything of it because I'm a clown. Just because I have never done a connecting flight before or had a layover before, so I was like, I'm just going to roll with the punches. So we boarded our first flight.
Bam!
And it ended up being delayed 20 minutes just because there was such bad winds in Heathrow. The flight attendant was actually super nice, gave me and 4 other ladies who had the connecting flight directions and that assurance that we were going to be okay. So I was stoked because 2 of these ladies were actually on the opposite side of my row. They were 2 typical older white suburban women, and they were disinfecting every possible area on that flight. So I was thinking this is great because then we can all just go together, and that they maybe even might protect me as if I'm their child just because I look like a child. So eventually the plane left, and since we were delayed, we landed at 9:50, which meant we had to sprint since our next flight was going to be at 10:50. So when we were taking our stuff out of the overhead bins, I actually went up to the 2 ladies and I was like, you guys are going to O'Hare, right? And they're like, yeah, let's go. I totally understand why they're so short just because of the situation was super stressful, but I was just expecting more of a kumbaya, we got you, child. So at this point, I'm sprinting off the plane, and my friend was so nice. He was like, don't worry if you don't make it. I'm sure you can hop on another plane later, but I just didn't want to deal with all that hassle, so I really wanted to make this flight. We ran into this woman who worked there who had a bright yellow jacket on and was shouting, to Chicago, and she handed all of us these orange passes that said we basically needed to make it to the gate immediately. Eventually, we ran right into where we had to go through security again. Are you kidding me? So this security line was packed, and so many people were being so nice, letting me and the other 4 ladies go through by just explaining our story and showing them our orange passes. So pretty quickly we got to the front. So just to make this easier, I'm going to call the 2 suburban white ladies Susan and Diane. Then the 3rd lady, I'm going to call her Jane. We didn't interact at all. And then the 4th lady, who is actually from like North Carolina or Georgia, I'm just going to call her Lorelai. So these 4 ladies were just going off at TSA, yelling at them, telling them that we're going to miss our flight and that we basically need to skip security. TSA clearly said no. So Jane, Diane, and Susan all were going through the first security line, and then me and Lorelai were actually going through the second line. And their line was a lot faster than ours. So the Heathrow security lines are also set up so it's like a lane system so that multiple people could put on their stuff at a time. So I was like in lane 4, and people were just getting in lane 1 and putting on their stuff before I could even do that. So Heathrow is also super strict about their liquid policy. They require everyone to put their liquids in a little clear plastic bag. So since we were traveling during this coronavirus pandemic, that meant so many people were carrying around little hand sanitizers they would forget to put back in the clear plastic bag, which meant their stuff was going to get pulled. So since every bag was being pulled and I was in lane 4 while people in lane 1 were putting their stuff on the conveyor belt before I could even do that, this meant it was taking forever. So eventually Lorelai put her stuff on the conveyor belt and I did about 5 minutes later. So I walked through the security screening and I noticed that Lorelai's stuff got pulled, and I also noticed that the 3 other ladies were all packed and ready to go.
Damn.
All of a sudden, the lady in the yellow jacket from before appeared again, and she had a walkie-talkie and a clipboard, and she said that she was going to take all the people going to that flight to O'Hare immediately. So since Lorelai and I didn't have our stuff yet, the lady in the yellow jacket was just like, sprint to the gate as soon as you have your stuff. Good luck.
What?
And then my stuff got pulled. So other people's pulled stuff was actually in front of Lorelai's and mine, so Lorelai was just going off, yelling at TSA, saying we're going to miss our flight, and asking if they could take her stuff and check why it got pulled first. So TSA called her a baby, said that was so rude of her, but actually then listened and took her stuff first.
I was like, can you take mine
So
too?
Lorelai had a small liquid in her bag that they just threw out, and then she put all her stuff together and ran to the gate.
Damn.
Now I am officially all alone, and I just start to sob. So there was one other guy who had his stuff pulled right in front of mine, and the TSA lady actually noticed I was not doing well and asked the man if she could look at my stuff first.
The man was like, oh, let me check. Let me see if I have time.
And I am just looking at this man with tears streaming down my face like, please man, my flight is in 5 minutes. So the TSA woman noticed I was not doing well and decided just to take my stuff next. So she's going through my stuff.
Damn.
And then she's like, oh, there's nothing wrong with this. It said your laptop wasn't out, but it actually was. So I find a random spot on the floor, and I just put my laptop in my bag, and I look up, and I swear in my mind, the clock said I had 2 minutes to go to make my flight. So I look up also, and I notice all these people my age level just staring at me.
And I'm just like, ah.
So I just started to sprint, and it was a long way to go. There I was again, just running through the airport, and I actually even dropped my ticket at one point, and thank God someone pointed that out. All of a sudden, I run into this guy in this like golf cart machine thing, and he was wearing a yellow jacket, and he asked if I was going to Chicago. So I screamed yes. He even said in his walkie-talkie,
I found the one.
So at this point, I'm still sobbing. He is driving me through the airport, and eventually we make it to the gate. It was closed, so they had to reopen it for me. At this point, they then asked me a couple questions, like have I been to China or Iran in the past 2 weeks. I hadn't been, so I said no to both those questions, and then they let me on the plane. So I entered the plane, and everyone is staring at me. So everyone knows I've been uncontrollably crying. All the overhead bins are full near me, so I'm trying to find one. I'm also in the middle seat, so I'm just causing so much ruckus. After I get situated, I look and I see that Susan and Diane are in my row and they're laughing at me.
What?
I think as soon as I got on my seat, the plane then left, and I just then spent the next 30 minutes crying. Overall, the flight was pretty smooth, and then we landed, and it took about 30 or 40 minutes to get through customs. I did not get tested once as I was traveling back to the US, which meant I probably did interact with some people that had it, and I just wasn't aware. So my parents made me do a really strict self-quarantine where I was only allowed in my room, a nearby bathroom, or my backyard for 14 days. I actually filmed a vlog during those 14 days, so totally check it out to see how I spent my time in isolation. About 3 days after I left Vienna, the country went on total lockdown, which meant I would not have been able to get home. It was such a crazy travel experience that I will never forget, but I'm super grateful to be home safe and have my family be healthy. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!